welcome to another wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at a game from Greg Smith called Beneath the Med. This is the most recent of his solitaire submarine games that have been being published or republished by GMT Games. Now, I have been very lucky because a couple of years ago, when this was still in the works, I was able to play a prototype of this at WBC, and it was at the end of the convention. Greg just gave me the prototypes. I've had this game for about a year and played it with, home printed, LaserJet components. I've played actually quite a lot of this game. It is very much in the style of things like The Hunters and Silent Victory. It is one of those games. This one is obviously, it's Regia Marina, so you are an Italian submarine commandant, and it's at least the campaigns I played, a lot of it's pottering around in the Mediterranean, going up against the Royal Navy. There's obviously the same thing where you're trying to find boats, you're trying to sink them, you're trying to get the most tonnage, and that's how you're going to get a successful campaign. I felt like, however, in this one of the big differences was that there was a lot more in the ways of kind of ship-on-ship action. I felt like whether or not this is true, there's a different question. I felt like I went up against warships and named warships more often than I have in the other campaigns. Which those are always very exciting engagements. They're very high-value targets. They're also very, very dangerous. And if you start in the 1940s, some of the little Italian subs are very dainty, is how I'll put it. Which I like. That's the aspect of this game that I enjoy. You can play in the late war with the massive beefy submarines with tons of torpedoes and, decent hulls and things like that. I enjoy playing with some of the early war stuff where it was, it's cutting edge technology at the time, but it was also quite experimental in a way, and you have a very limited number of torpedoes. What that means is target acquisition and picking your target and how many torpedoes you're going to use is very, very important. So the decisions that you do make have an extra layer of some tension in there. You got some things to think about. This ship is only worth 2,000 tons. Do I bother wasting torpedoes on it? Or do I wait to find something much better? But you might not find something better. So I like playing some of the earlier stuff because the decisions you do make in this game then become, they take a little bit more weight to them. So let's talk about decisions. So this is one of those narrative style games. If you wanted to be reductive, you could say this is literally just you roll a die, this is what happens on a chart. You're rolling through tons of charts, there is a bunch of them, you go through, you just roll a die and see what happens to you. Sure. To an extent, you could say that and it'd be hard for anyone to argue with you. However, there is the decision space that you do have whilst it is small, I think it's quite important. You roll and this is what you find. Okay, so the decision is, do I engage yes or no? If I engage, at what range? And there's 5 range bands in this one, and that's different from Silent Victory, for example. You've got, what range do you, and then it's, how do I attack? Do I attack with my forward torpedoes, my aft torpedoes? It's at nighttime, do I do a surface attack? Do I attack with my deck gun? So which weapons you employ, and then how many of those torpedoes, like we said, do you employ? If you run into a convoy, which boats do you target? The really high value ones require more hits to destroy. So you might damage something, but if you use all your torpedoes damaging something, it's no good. So do you pick off something that's a little bit easier, that you're more guaranteed to actually sink to get the tonnage? And then you know, once you get into things like being detected and you're being depth charged, you know, you get into a couple of choices of, do I exceed my test depth? Do I go lower and deeper into the ocean to try and hide? You know, a couple bits and pieces here. So, you know, again, the decision space isn't massive, but the decisions you do make are important. And part of that brings it all together that this game is it's a narrative-driven solitaire game. You're in it for those exciting moments. You're in it for the story. This isn't a game where you have a huge amount of tactical decision-making. This isn't something like Fields of Fire, right, where it's all about command and control. You make things happen. This is, you roll on the charts, some things happen to you, and you have a few opportunities to kind of alter those outcomes and what happens, but a lot of it is, this is a story generator in a way. And I understand that that's not for everyone, but for those that do like it, I enjoyed this one. I also enjoyed this one. I don't know. I don't know why I did. I guess because, again, this is all, a lot of it's theatre of the mind. You play out what's happening in your head. I enjoy the Mediterranean as a theatre. You know, these little Italian subs roaming around, the heavy Royal Navy on the surface, and the anti-submarine duels that are going on. And I also found in this one, because there were the ratio of submarines on both sides, whilst it's still not massively likely, I came up with submarine on submarine warfare more often than I had in the other games. And that was always something cool. I mean, the encounters are like, oh, I got an encounter, and almost invariably nothing happens. It's so difficult for you to detect and hit each other as two little stealthy submarines. But if you do get it to go, oh, it feels really good. And it's just more likely that you'll do that in this particular one. What I'll do is I will show you the map. It's not a map. The little playing pieces and kind of how some of it works. And I'll just wrap up with a few final thoughts. So here's a look at kind of the map and what you'd be expecting to look at. And really, it boils down to you can have just these two pieces of card, and then you just hold these. There's a series of charts. It's four or five cards of charts that you're going to roll through. But you can keep it down to this for table space if you are so inclined. What you're going to do is you're going to be assigned one of these in this class. It's a very small early war class. You're going to be assigned one of these three Mediterranean, Western, Central, or Eastern patrols. You go through, and each box you're going to roll for encounters, see what you find. If you find stuff, you're going to go over to the attack chart. You're going to go through an attack sequence. You're going to do that until you get to the end of your transit and back, and that's the end of a month's worth of patrol. And then you do it again and again and again until you die or you get to the end of the war, if you're very, very lucky. At the end of that, you're going to total up all the ships that you sank, and here's a very early campaign that I'm working on right now. You total up all the different ships that you sank and the amount of tonnage total that determines basically how well you did or didn't do in the game. So it's not a complex game by any stretch of the imagination. So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll on our submarine assignment. And we'll just, I'm past this, but we're going to pretend that we're going to roll in the very early war here. So we just roll on this chart, and we're going to roll 2d6. It says 2d6 there. So we're going to roll those. And I rolled a 10. And so you consult the 10 row. And so we're going to go Western Med. So in the Western Med, this is where I'm going to be assigned to. So when I'm in the Western Med, I'm going to go through all of these different boxes. And I'm going to basically roll in each box, and it's, you know, this is a period of time and some distance, and that's basically what you're going to encounter. So we're going to go into the transit box, and the transit boxes is you know, leaving port, usually in fairly safe waters. So the transit column is fairly empty. Most of the time you're not going to find anything, he says. So I rolled a 10. 10 is a nothing. Transit. 9 is a nothing. That's very common. It's very rare that you'll actually find stuff during transit. So then now we're in the Western Med box. We're going to go onto the Western Med chart, and this is the chart we're going to roll on. So we rolled an 11, and so on an 11 we have a convoy result. And a convoy, you get 4 ships. So what we're going to do is we're going to then consult what it is that we find. Let's see. Well, there's kind of a few different ways that you can go about doing this. So I like to roll the day or night, just for the sake of it. So you roll day or night. On a 1 through 3, it's daytime. So basically we found them during the day. It's good to get them at night. I guess that's what I'm saying. So then we're going to determine the ship size. So for each ship in a convoy, and on a convoy we roll 4 times for each ship size and ID. And the convoy has an escort. So we're going to roll 4 times. So the first one, we rolled a 1, which means it's a small freighter. And the second one is a 6, which is a tanker. That's usually very good. And then we rolled a 6, another tanker. Very, very good. And the last one is a 4, which is a large freighter. So that's very, very good. We do have escorts on this. Every convoy, if you get the convoy result, does have an escort. You can just keep it as regular escorts. I like to play with the optional rules where you have a variable quality. Sometimes you get really bad escorts. That's really good. Or sometimes you get veteran ones. It's just a tiny little bit of extra flavor. So we rolled a 6. Oh, that's bad for us. That's actually very bad. So that means we have a veteran escort. It means it's +1 to hit them, and it's easier for them to detect us as well. So that's actually quite bad. Now, we have all of these types of ships. What we're then going to do is we're going to roll on these charts to find the exact size and identification of them. So we've got a small freighter, so we're going to roll on the small freighter chart here. And we're going to do red as our singles and black as our tens. So we have so red's the first number. I'm an idiot. So red's 20. This is a 21. So 21, we have a 2,400 ton small freighter called the Mardinian. So what you would do is you would write that down on your little chart here. That's the tonnage, and then we basically do that for all of them. So what we're going to do now, so that one we've got to get down to there. Okay, interesting. Okay, so now we've got 2 tankers. Tankers are good because they're usually very high value. So the first tanker is 74. 6,000 tons. So that's like 3 times better. So we're definitely going to try and get that one down. And then the second tanker is 35. 35 is 7,100 tons. So also very good. And then we do have a large freighter. So we're going to go into our large freighter. No, that's warships. Large freighter. Here we go. And our large freighter is 72, 5,100 tons. Okay. So basically what I'm going to do in this instance, I'm just going to remove the small and large freighter. Because we're not going to attack those. I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to attack, and then, so both of these tankers, that's what these boxes go down by their kind of weight. Each of them need 3 hits to destroy. And a torpedo will do a variable number of hits based on a die roll. So it's... I'm going to probably only target the 7,100 ton tanker because I'd rather be sure of sinking it than try to pepper both and get nothing from it. Especially with a veteran escort who might not enable me to do more rounds of combat. I might not get away with it. So, we are going to be submerged. You can be surfaced if you were so inclined, if it was nighttime and you want to use your deck gun. I'm going to do standard range. That's just gives you a decent opportunity to hit, but also you might get detected before you can even shoot. But yeah, that's what it is. So we're going to roll on the escort detection chart. If I can pull it out. Yes, I can. He says it's right here. So on the escort detection chart, it is... Oh, okay, they don't get a bonus. Okay, good. So on the escort detection chart here, we're going to roll 2d6, and we need to get an 8 or less. Well, that's actually not true. We need to get a 10 or less. We're only detected on an 11 or 12 for this preemptive stuff. Okay, so we don't get detected. That means we can attack normally. So at this point, you're now going to choose, do I fire my aft torpedoes? I've only got 2. Or my forward torpedoes? I've got 4. So I'm going to fire my forward torpedoes, and you can choose how many you fire. In this instance, I'm going to fire all of them, because I know a number of them will miss, and a number of them may be duds, and I need to do at least 3 hits to sink this thing in one go. So I'm really trying to hedge my bets and send everything. It is possible, if you were so inclined, you can shoot both, but it's much harder to get away. It's much easier to be detected if you do that, because you're firing, turning your sub around, firing out the back. That's a much longer and more obvious process. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fire these torpedoes. So to fire them, we look at our submarine torpedo fire chart, and we're at standard range, so we hit on a 6 or less. On a 7 or more is a miss. So it's not great. It's really not great. But the good news is it's nighttime, so we're... Oh, it's daytime. Pants. If it's nighttime, it'd be -1 on our roll. That'd be very good. We're not green. There's a whole bunch of modifiers here. We're not using the electric torpedoes. So basically, we need to roll a natural 6 or more for each of these 4 torpedoes. So the first one is a miss. That's unfortunate. Second one is a hit. Third one is a miss. Fourth one is a hit. That's excellent. That's actually pretty good, considering. So these 2 that missed, we just kind of tossed them aside. These 2 are going to hit. What we're going to do now is we're going to check to see if any of them were duds. On a D6, on a 1, they're a dud. So the first one, fine. Second one is a dud. Yep. And this is why I fired all of them. So this one hits, but bang, doesn't do anything. So now I've only got 1 torpedo that actually hits the target. And now what we're going to do is we're going to roll our attack damage chart. On this one, you want to roll as low as humanly possible. Because if you roll a 1, it's going to do 4 damage. If you roll a 2, it's going to do 3 damage. It's going to sink it outright. Anything more than that, then it's just going to be damage, which is unfortunate for us. So I'm going to roll the 1 die. Oh, and I rolled a 5. So 4 or more is 1 damage. So basically what you do is you just move it here, it's got 1 damage. I need to get it into this box because it's 7,100 tons for it to be destroyed. So unfortunately, this is the point at which we have to roll for detection to see if the escort veteran detects us. So we go to our escort detection chart. Before we roll on this, we can attempt to exceed our test depth. If we do that, we gain a -1 modifier on this, but it also does an auto damage to our hull. And I'm not willing to risk that at the moment, so I'm just going to roll the dice. So we've got no. Okay, so we're going to roll the dice. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, fantastic. We rolled very well, so we are undetected. That means we get away. If we'd have rolled something like a 10, we'd be detected, and this guy would do a bunch of attacks to us, and we would take a bunch of damage. It would damage all your systems. All of these give you negative modifiers to a lot of things that you try to do. If you get your hull damage up, you just have to surface or you sink. Things get really hairy really quickly. But that's really what this game's about. I would now attempt to try to follow this convoy, see if this guy, he's damaged. If they might leave him, they might just be like, screw it, we can't afford to hang back because you're too slow. there's a roll to do that, in which case he becomes isolated, you can pick him off nice and easily, or they just keep going and he limps along and you've got to do that all over again. But basically you're trying to rack up tonnage, you're trying to sink these guys, you're trying to fight your poor technology with your duds and your bad aiming and things like that. As you get better, your crew will get better, which gives you positive modifiers to attack. You can grow your named crew members, like your second in command and your doctor and things like that, who can help you avoid wounds, things like that. But basically, the more you do this, the more you go through your campaign. After you sink a certain number of ships, you start getting medals, which some of the better ones, give you like a little modifier or a bonus, or you might get transferred to a better type of sub, which that always feels good when you get promoted and they give you a nice shiny boat, and then you're better at doing things. There's just a lot of neatness to it, but the reality is you're rolling on a bunch of charts and seeing what happens. There is decision in how many torps to attack, what range to attack, that'll affect your modifiers, things like that. Who to pick off, because you might only have a couple torpedoes left. Well, you saw, right? I did 1 damage with 4 torpedoes. So is it worth missing and doing nothing to this guy, or shall I pick off? If I'd have shot that small freighter, I would have sunk it, and I would have had a couple thousand tons. And now I've got nothing, because I didn't sink that guy. So the decisions about who and when you attack are very important. You can attack the escorts if you were so inclined, which, if you hit them and sink them, great. If you miss them, it makes them very mad, and it's much easier for them to detect you. So there's a lot of neat stuff that goes on there, but that's the core of this game, is we roll on some charts, see what happens, enjoy the story as it unfolds. So that's the game. Like you said, it's very similar in a lot of ways to the other ones in the series, right? And people are going to ask, which one would you prefer? Which one would you pick? And I would just tell you, pick the one that thematically is the most interesting. Yes, they're all subs, but do you like the Pacific? Do you like the Atlantic? Do you like the Med? Pick one. You'll have fun with either one. Doesn't matter. The only one of them, Silent Victory, is the only one where you actually play as an Allied sub. You play as Americans in the Pacific, sinking Japanese. So that's the other thing to consider. If you want to be the good guys, that's your only option. If you want to be bad guys, any of the other ones. What the other thing I would say is my copy of Silent Victory is the old version from Consim Press. They're all made by GMT now. And the rulebook for Beneath the Medford, at least, is much tidier. I enjoyed... it was really easy to read the rules. Because I've played, I think, 3 of these in the series, and a lot of other Greg's solo games, it was really easy for me, frankly, just to skim the rules and to see, just to pick out all the bits that are different. It was very, very simple to do that. So if you've played one of these, learning another one, not difficult in any way, shape, or form. The nice thing with this is you get some of the nice Italian flavour in it. So you have some of the special missions in this one. You carry around those SLC little pig class mini subs, which have 2 riders on them. You carry one of those around, you drop it off in Gibraltar Harbour kind of thing, and then you go about doing your stuff. And you get to do these little mini turns with those. Nice stuff. I like that. Just because it really did something different. There's nothing quite like that in the other ones, but it's mostly just thematically different. I don't know. I enjoyed it a lot. I always have a good time with these. The only major complaint, so to speak, that I had is that the attack mat doesn't have a sequence of play on it. And I can't remember about the Hunters, but I know Silent Victory had the attack sequence on there, and the following sequence and all of that. That was on the attack mat, and it was very helpful. That's not on here. That's the only thing that I was like, that's annoying. And then one of the charts is mislabeled, or one of the rules referencing it is mislabeled. I can't remember quite what it is. Like it's maybe it's in the rules. It refers you to a chart that's clearly the wrong chart, but it's fairly obvious which chart because it names it, but then it gives the wrong letter and number designation. I can't remember which one it is though. I can't remember if it was to do with escorts. I think it was to do with escort detection. Escort air attack is B4. And then, and somewhere else in the rules, it referred to it by a different number, and it was a misprint. Escort air attack chart. Yeah, yeah. Is it this one? Successful air attack. Yeah. So on the aircraft encounter as A4, it refers to. No, it's not that one. No. Whatever. I remember there was something. There was one other thing, but I forgot what it is, so it can't be that important. All in all, though. They give you a good number of dice to play around with. It's more of the same, but I don't know. I liked pottering around in the med. I like having a small little boat. I like that makes everything more important. You know, one round of depth charging can be the end of it. You know, you got a bit more leeway than in something like Night Fighter Ace, where like you get raked and you're dead. But playing with the small stuff, playing with the underdog stuff, where you're clearly outmatched, that stuff's what makes it tense and interesting. It's easy to roam around in some of the bigger late war stuff and sink some bits and pieces, but you know, I have a good fun time with these. They're also nice because the reality is if you've got your charts together, your table space is literally 2 pieces of paper. You've got the attack map and then your like sub chart, which has all of the different patrol boxes on there, and you'll just use that. You know, it's got all the fancy. There's a map in here where it's like, oh, well, you know, you can get out your little commandant dress-up doll if you want for all your medals. It has one of these where it's just a fancy map of the different patrols that you can do, but it's also all on each of the different subs. It has these boxes. This is exactly the same as those maps. It's just they're lined up and it's not as pretty. So if you're so inclined, you can keep this game really small. It's really easy to play, kind of tucked on the side of your desk at work if you're going to play on a lunch break, or it's something easy to take with you if you're going on holiday somewhere. It's, you know, it's a portable little solitaire game, and that has some merit to it if that's something that you were looking for. But in end effect, this game will reward you the more you put into it. You know, if you name your captain, if you name your crew members, and you allow yourself to get into it, and you allow the actions to play out in your mind as to what's happening, it's almost like a miniature RPG in that way. And well, might not have the most intense tactical control that you do in other games, but the stories can be very tense and quite palpable in certain ways, and I like that. I enjoy that. So if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, this is new, it's available. If you're inclined towards the med, go for it. This is a fun title in the series, but frankly, I enjoy all the ones that I've played in this series. So, you know, pick one that's good for you. But this one it's no better or worse than the other ones. It's just thematically slightly different. So pick one that's good for you. I enjoyed this one immensely, and I'm sure many of you will out there. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.